Hello, everyone. Welcome to Last Minute History, the podcast that's like a terrible book report done by two guys.
So as you can see, I'm
He's
working
like
on
still
my
fiddling with
camera
his
here.
camera.
Yeah.
I'm Atlas Novak. I am your English teacher doing history, and that's Cole Clayton. What are you exactly?
The student of life, right? You know, trying to learn here.
I guess so.
Trying to
So
discuss, trying to like stop the myth of the man and all that,
the
So,
myth of the man. I
the
mean,
myth of
so
the man.
far, the one episode we've done hasn't been about anyone in particular, and neither is this, because this is so far in the past that you don't really have a lot of like great man of history stuff popping up yet. You start seeing that more in like during the classical period with like Greek and Roman times. Dino, by the way, our producer, who you might see on the bottom ticker there. If I'm wrong about anything, please fact check me, because I'm kind of sure that's nerds helpful. Thank you. So today we're going to be talking about the Bronze Age collapse. Now, do you know what the Bronze Age is, or why it collapsed, or anything of that nature, Cole?
So from what I understand, it's kind of where we switched from like wood to metal in like material stuff.
You're close. It's when we switched from bronze to iron,
Okay.
and it wasn't because somebody found iron and was like, dude, this is awesome. We got to do that. And then the people who were like for bronze were like, no, this is better. And then we had like a thing the way we are with TikTok, and Gen Z kids are like, TikTok is better. It's not
Yeah,
like
pretty
Vine
much.
versus TikTok. No, it was a bunch of societies all collapsing around the same time as each other, in basically the same area, and it set back humanity by thousands of years. So after the Bronze Age collapse, we went from these like great societies of like Egypt is the one that most people think of, right? The
Right.
pyramids, the Sphinx, that society of pharaohs and kings, the society that Yu-Gi-Oh was invented in.
I was about to say the same shit, dude.
The
Yeah.
society that Yu-Gi-Oh was invented in.
So there were
Yeah.
these giant monsters. There was the pharaoh, and then there was Seto Kaiba. So they trapped them in templates.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
for like a few centuries, trade disappears, pottery becomes more primitive. Like we forgot of a bunch of stuff in this collapse.
Really?
Construction of these big monuments and big cities and things kind of vanishes. Most of the like settlements that we find archaeologically after are like these little things in like the mountains. You don't really see people constructing things made of stone, like more permanent materials. It's a lot more of the like wood, that sort of thing. It would be the equivalent of, you know how we're all really good at smartphones?
Right.
Imagine if all of a sudden there was an EMP and all of the phones in the world shut off, and we had to like just figure it out from there.
Well, it's kind of like the fear, right, of like what could happen, which is why there's
Yeah,
so many like doomsdayers and whatnot, preppers and whatnot, or
yeah.
people with the canned goods and all that shit.
Hmm.
So
And you would still have this like, and in this metaphor, assume that like all of the tech bros die in that too.
yeah,
So
okay.
like all of the things that were made to like figure out the technology is just not there. We suddenly go back to the 90s without the people who were around in the 90s. You have children trying to figure out a more primitive setting. That's kind of what this is like. The written word almost becomes extinct during this time.
Really?
Part of the reason we don't have a lot of information about this is there the like writing isn't like now where mass dumbing of civilization. Literally, yes, writing isn't like now where you have a public school system. Writing was like a skill that you would be trained in your entire life, scribes and things like that. So when
How,
the
how do you think that we lost it? Like what?
uh,
Just shit caught on fire, and did they have library type systems back then, or?
they did, Now, remember, if you remember from our Mesopotamia episode, a lot of writing was done on clay tablets. That doesn't really last super long.
Right.
There is like they found one reasonably intact one in the 80s that was like a more minor king sending a tablet out like, hey, help, anyone, please help, my society's collapsing. And it was found in a kiln, meaning that they had just like written on it and baked it to like set the writing, and then everything around it was destroyed. So that entire city was just burned to the ground.
Fuck.
Yeah. So like I was saying, writing was like a more of a specialized skill. So with the disappearance of these societies, like we kind of forgot how to write for a couple hundred years, give or take. And to answer your question about why do I think this happened, many historians still argue about it today. We'll talk about the collapse more in part 2. This is a two-parter. But I just wanted to spend this episode setting up what exactly is collapsing.
Okay.
And then next time
we can answer the question next week then, or in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And also that clip I sent you is going to come in handy.
Right.
So let's set up our players here. Now, these aren't the only societies, but it's kind of easier to split them into this because these were the major big cities. If the US suddenly got that EMP pulse and we all burned to the ground, and then hundreds of years later someone was talking about it, they'd be like, okay, we have New York, LA, Washington, DC, and Seattle, or whatever the thing is, right? You wouldn't be talking about like, all right, in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Like, no.
Where are we on the map?
This is in the Mediterranean Sea.
Okay.
Mostly on the eastern side of the map. So
Dino's over here high-fiving himself.
Dino, our producer, is Greek for reference.
Which is kind of Mediterranean. Over there, I think.
It is Mediterranean.
I know. I'm with him right now. He's losing his mind over here now.
Oh, okay, that's fine. If I get him to stomp on camera from this, like on your end, I've succeeded. Anyway,
he'll just boot me out. I have to come back in.
Be like, okay, here's what I have to say about this. Okay. All right. So starting off, we have Egypt. Like I was saying about Egypt. So the big advantage that Egypt has as a society is the Nile. Like I brought up with the Mesopotamia episode, Nile floods every year. They know exactly when it's going to flood. So their agriculture is bomb, right? They're the breadbasket of the ancient world.
Okay.
They're able to sell food to other
they were the original let's get this bread like sayers, they came up with that phrase, get this bread.
Literally, yes. So that allowed them to trade to other places, the other three empires that I'm going to bring up here. They also had conquered during their rise period an area called Kush, Kush, and that had gold. So not only did they have let's get this bread, they had let's get this bread. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that brings up a question I've always actually wanted to ask. Why did we now I understand why, because of the digital age and everything. But why did they decide that gold was in their opinion of value? I assume that's around the time, maybe a little bit before, that they decided people all around the world, really, or wherever they were, decided gold we like gold. What was the reason for that? What did it do for us?
Okay, so from a caveman point of view, shiny shit, right? We like shiny shit.
But right. But it has no.
Here's the other kicker with gold. Gold is malleable, meaning that you can shape it into things like, hats and masks and things of that nature. So you can make things seem more sacred than they are with gold. That's not a concrete established theory. That's my best educated guess why gold is the GOAT of precious metals, right?
Because we could make stuff was artistic.
Yes, we we had something in the United States called the gold standard, where our dollar Women love it. Our dollar was pegged to gold's value. And then in the 70s, we took our dollar off the gold standard because we pretty much had all of the gold in the world following both world wars. People still like argue about whether or not it was a good idea to take it off the gold standard, and that's not what this episode is for. But that's why a lot of like currency is just pegged to the US dollar, because the US dollar became like shorthand because we had most of the gold in the world. Now that's starting to come undone. I'm getting off track. Sorry.
You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah. So yeah, they have let's get this bread. They have let's get this bread, right? Egypt. Right. They have a complex bureaucracy. So this allows them to build things like the pyramids. And when you hear about the pyramids in school, what did they tell you about how it was built?
The pyramids? Oh, yeah. I mean, I was mostly told that like Hebrew slaves, were kind of forced to put it together. I don't know how much of that is true, and I don't know how much of that is accurate. But that's kind of my base knowledge for it,
It's mostly pyramids were done by paid workers.
Gotcha.
They weren't paid well, but they got a stipend and like rations and things like that. And it was like during certain parts of the year, like, all right, October to January, you come, you lay rocks for the pyramid, and then you can go back to being like a baker or whatever.
Right.
This was also because Egypt had the pharaohs were even more ensconced in like societal movement than kings were in the medieval.
Now what do you mean by that? By societal movement, like growth and progression, or
no? Like what they said went. The bureaucracy was so complicated and so like all encompassing that you had it all, based on one guy, but you also had like artisans and court officials and things like that, which meant the society was able to like take on these big projects like the pyramids or plant their stuff every year so they could, get this bread. But it also meant that if you kill the pharaoh or kill enough court officials, have you ever showed up to work and your boss isn't there?
Yeah.
Then what happened?
Somebody gets promoted.
I guess.
Usually the GM or the AGM, whoever's in charge per se.
I guess
what are you trying to say?
A better metaphor is like when everybody quits from a workplace at once and they leave a sign on the door.
It's chaotic. It's just closed down.
It's complete chaos if enough people from this society are killed at the same time or die at the same time. It's so connected to the pharaoh and to his court that there's no freedom of movement for the lower castes, but that also means that it's like a big Jenga tower, right?
Right.
So
it's like the base for how government is made even today, where we have all these checks and balances and stuff, because it's through trial and error. It was the original government where it was like, oh, we'll just put one guy in charge. And then we quickly realized, well, what happens when that guy dies? Well, we need another guy. And then we need another guy. We need some more guys. And we need this group of people. So I get what you're saying.
Ironically,
it was literally like a pyramid.
Yeah, ironically, it's like a flipped over pyramid. His power stretches far, but the base is really weak. If you take it off, then the whole structure comes.
They call that a fulcrum.
Yeah. Good one. The last thing to keep in mind is that Egypt and all of these societies actually had this caste of like warrior charioteers. Horses weren't bred big enough yet to ride. So you didn't really have like cavalry as a thing in armies for the most part yet. You had these guys in chariots pulled by horses, and the chariots were expensive to make, and it was very hard to train these guys, and they were really good at waging war. But what happens if you kill too many of them at once?
They
Yeah, and
Would
we're
be painted.
they would be painted. No, it means that your fighting force is gone because you can't.
Everyone goes to lunch.
Everyone
Matthew,
goes to lunch.
You
Yeah,
get, you get the reference, right?
yeah, definitely. We have like examples of this kind of thing where you have like a super well-trained army or like a well-trained part of an army that's important, but once enough of them get taken out, it takes too long to replace them, and that's when everything comes crumbling down. We'll see this with the English longbowmen when we get to that like Joan of Arc's era of history. You'll see it if we ever cover the Great Northern War with those guys.
Okay, so where is Greece even a thing yet? Where we are at this very moment, what we're talking about, is Greece even a thing, or are we just focusing on Egypt?
I can get to that. So the Mycenaeans are in where Greece is now. So those are like the proto-Greeks.
Okay.
So Egypt's the breadbasket. The Mycenaeans are the industrial center. So they import raw goods from all over the ancient world, and then they ship out finished stuff.
So this was like we had legit trade and everything. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had a very like interconnected and like dependent trade network in this era of the world. It's kind of like how oil is today, honestly. Bronze is to this era of history what oil is now.
Okay, so it's like somebody has to drill it, then somebody has to barrel it, somebody has to go and refine it, then we ship it out, and everybody needs it for gas.
Yeah, and then you turn it into plastic, and or like whatever stuff you're doing. So the Mycenaeans are doing the artisan stuff, which is funny because Dino, his parents owned a machine shop, which is that's pretty on brand for that family. If the Mycenaeans are doing that,
you stick to what you know, right?
Okay, so you have Egypt as breadbasket. Mycenaeans are the artisans, the producers of goods. Then you have the Hittites. So the Hittites are directly north of Egypt. So it's kind of like where Mesopotamia is ish, sort of. So the Hittites are like a warrior society. And again, like Egypt and the Mycenaeans, they have charioteer warriors, but it's a bigger deal to them.
And where are the Hittites located at in modern day?
Like kind of near like Istanbul, like the northeastern part of the Mediterranean.
Okay. So like not quite Ukraine, but a little bit closer, like a little bit more like south. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, Ukraine's on the Mediterranean, is it? Is it not? No. Okay. No. I'm fucking shit up now.
That's okay.
Geography is not my place, like at all. So
it's okay. I kind of wish I had visual aids for this. I would be like happy to be like, okay, do it like John Madden style with a fucking.
We'll have to do that. We'll have to remember that for next time. You'll be like a weatherman. You'll be like, and you get a green screen. Don't wear green.
Have you ever seen the there's like a weatherman who will do he'll do like his weather report, but he'll slip in song lyrics. So he's like, all right, I'm gonna do Enter Sandman by Metallica. So
yeah,
he's like,
I've
seen that guy?
Yeah.
All right, so the Hittites are a warrior society. They are the big red target of these four because they have most access to the tin and copper mines in their area. Now, tin and copper make bronze.
Okay.
So all of their metal, so like the oil thing, right? All of their weapons and all the stuff on their chariots. Thank you, Dino. So in blue, you have the Mycenaeans, Egypt's in yellow on the bottom. There's Hittites on the top, and then the Assyrians, who I haven't gotten to yet, are in green. So the Hittites have they have access to these tin and copper mines, and tin is really freaking rare, like uranium rare.
Oh shit!
So
is it still, or is that just for the times?
No, like as an element, it's really rare for whatever reason. Yeah.
It's so cheap, though, isn't it?
I think so. I'm not sure. I think it's because it's not used for much because we figured out iron. Like iron is the better thing. So copper and tin make bronze. Tin was rare, and the Hittites might have had the only production facilities. They imported a lot of their goods, like a lot of their food from Egypt, and a lot of their like finished goods from the Mycenaeans, as well as the Assyrians to the east. Now, the Assyrians don't matter quite as much to this whole thing, but they're still sort of important because they're the the Hittites and Egyptians went to war a lot, and the Assyrians were kind of this third thing that was like, don't go to war too hard because then the Assyrians are going to come fuck us up.
Not bad, huh?
They're the sword of Damocles, right? Where it's like if we like wear each other down too much, that hammer is going to drop and kill us both.
Okay, so and everybody is on the coast
of the Mediterranean.
Right? So, what was travel like?
Most of it was by sea, and in Egypt's case, up the Nile. Right. That was another big thing for the Egyptians was they had most of their society was just along the river. You could get most of your stuff to everyone in your sphere of influence by boat. The Assyrians, ironically, lasted about 100 years longer than the other three, despite being kind of the worst off. They had to import most of their stuff from the other three nations. They were away from the ocean, which means they had to, if they wanted to like get somewhere, they had to go over land. But that also means they were the least vulnerable.
That makes sense.
To the sea people, which we'll get to.
We'll get to that
next time. So that's kind of all I have in terms of setting up the players that we have.
Okay, and I did have one quick question before we move on.
Yeah.
You said that the pyramids were starting to be constructed at this time?
The pyramids were done by this
time. Shit.
Yeah.
Why did they build those? If you have any theory or if you know.
There's a theory that they're grain silos, but I think they're like monuments to pharaohs long gone. It doesn't really make sense as a grain silo.
It's so crazy that those were already built by then. That's insane.
Yeah, see what I mean?
The Sphinx too, right?
What?
And the Sphinx too? Fuck. Aliens, bro.
No, it's we had all this knowledge before, and this collapse causes us to forget a bunch of stuff. It causes us to. It's the equivalent of me having a seizure, waking up and forgetting that I had 3 things to do that day. I just lose all ambition. It was a societal and sounds of Dino dying to talk conspiracy theories. Fine, Dino, come on in if that's how you want to do it for the rest of the episode. Oh my god, should I not have done that?
No, but go ahead and pull up the most recent comment, Dino, if you can. I wanted to read that.
In comparison to steel, 2023, 886 a ton.
What was the one right before that?
Earlier this year, the research agency said it had lowered its tin price forecast in 2024 to an average of 26,000 per ton. So tin is
pretty cheap. Is it?
Well,
26,000 a ton. That's what
versus 886.
$13,000 for half for 1,000 pounds. I mean, it's a little over. It's what like
versus 1,000 pounds for 2 ton for 2,000 pounds.
Right. So that's about $1.30 a pound.
Versus
steel.
What?
Look at the bottom. Look at the bottom. Steel. 886.
Okay, I missed that.
So it's like a third.
So then what about all these fucking tin roofs we got in the fucking trailer parks then? Everybody I fucking knew when I grew up had tin roofs. I know that's we're learning more about my history now, but that's all anybody had. You hear the fucking rain. It's the best sleep you'll ever get, by the way. Is rain with a tin roof.
Yeah.
But why the fuck you put steel on people's roofs then? That's crazy.
maybe it's just easier to get like sheets of tin than any other material, because like tin, while rare, is still like a metal that you can do for. I don't know. I don't have a good answer, unfortunately.
Don't let anybody tell you if you grew up in the trailer parks, you grew up cheap. That's what I'm finding out.
tin is expensive. That's the lesson from this.
That's a good roof.
Yeah. So like we were saying, bronze is an alloy. You have all of these societies that they're not self-sufficient. They need to trade with each other for them to work, right? You have one making the products, one doing the food, one mining the raw materials, and another keeping two of them in check. So you have this sort of like very delicate Jenga tower, and all
Westeros type situation.
Yes, yes, you are not completely off the money with that.
I watch dragons and shit.
I haven't watched the sequel. Is it good or
not as good as the original? If I'm honest, it's not. It's not really. So far, only one season, so I can't really speak on it. But to me, it's not really necessary to watch unless you're just a mega fan, So
right, or you just really love that world.
Right.
It's kind of like I'll watch anything Avatar: The Last Airbender like related, except
That's fair.
for
I do the same thing with Dragon Ball, even the non-canon shit. So you're looking at me like you're a crazy person.
No, I just heard Dino go like, I mean, ... All right. Anyway, if you want to, if you're curious as to what happens to all these society, no doodling. All right.
No Google.
Tell us below what caused the Bronze Age collapse, and you'll get to find out next week, or next time, because we're every other week on Last Minute History. But yeah.
You think is that it for tonight?
That's pretty much all I got. Like, if unless you want to vamp for 3 minutes or whatever, I was aiming for half an hour anyway.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, I have to go grab a quick bowl of something, and I'll be right back if you want to just bullshit for a second.
Okay. I'm gonna take a stab and say the Silver Age best the Bronze Age. That's comic books. That's a lot different. There's the Iron Age, which comes after this, and because it's stone, bronze, iron, and then I don't know what the hell it is now. Dang, it's so close. Dude, you know what's so much better than Mycenae? Batman. Before Cole comes back, I guess, if he, so I don't have to do this later, you can find me at Atlas Novak. See that in the bottom? That's where you can find me at. You can also follow me on all the other social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. TikTok. I have a YouTube channel called The Epileptic Comic. Subbed my man. Thank you much. These episodes also come out on the Generation Dan, which is my podcast with Dino off screen there. My podcast with Dino, that's a comedy show about generational differences. Cole sometimes makes guest appearances on that. That's every Friday. This show is every other Monday. And then if you want to check out my other podcast, that's Nexus at Night, which is about trading card games. And if you don't care or understand, that's completely fine. Not everybody's spiel. So yeah, that was pretty much it. I'm excited for next time because a lot of what comes up with the actual collapse is guessing. And I really want to see, for the people streaming, or for the people watching the stream, I want to see you like say your answers to like what really caused the Bronze Age collapse, because it's not just one thing. It's never like a lot of things about history are never just one dude doing a thing and then everything changes forever. It's always a little stuff that adds up to something turning on a dime. Now, next time we air will be on April 1st at 6 p.m. The only podcast with homework. Shut the fuck up, Dino. Next time we air is on April 1st at 6 p.m. Eastern or Pacific, which will be 9 p.m. Eastern. The Kardashians. What? I don't know what they're talking about. Anyway,
responsible for that
Oh, got it.
So I tried to take a picture of my stew and send it to Dino, but my phone's acting weird. So we do have a nice stew that I made.
What kind of stew?
I made so I really just made a hodgepodge of everything that's been kind of made on Hammer and Cheese lately. I made last week. I made a like a pork roast, and then yesterday I made corned beef. So I kind of used the corned beef broth, and I used the pork roast and various vegetables. This shit me and Dino have been making throughout the week and kind of munching on. Just put it all together. I was like, oh, perfect. They like stew back then in the Bronze Age. So
Yeah.
fuck it.
Who doesn't like stew? I already did all my plugs for everything, so if you want to do your thing, go for it.
Yeah, check me out tomorrow and every Tuesday on Hammer and Cheese, where me and Dino will be making whatever, and I get drunk. We actually will have a guest host on tomorrow. Kyle Petrila. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Petrila?
But one of them. He'll correct me tomorrow.
I'm not sure. He will reach to the screen and strangle you. Was the stew age like tonight's topic?
These big people always got to have everything correct. I don't know. They're angry. What? These lower European people, immigrants, if you will. Southern. I don't mean lower. When I say lower, I mean Southern. Okay. And then every other Saturday, you can check out me and my son Jack on every other weekend meals. And every Saturday, me and my sister do the greatest goddamn show on air, where we kind of talk about where her opinions end and where mine begin. So, because she's a bossy person in general, and I'm hard to deal with. But yeah, that's it for me. We'll catch you in 2 weeks when we talk about the rest of the Bronze Age collapse.
Yeah, the actual collapse is coming. Stay tuned, everyone. We'll see you next time.